if you raise venture capital, investors require an exit, so you at least should understand what they are longing for to actually make an investment. Treat your investor like an extended team member.
What exit strategies should be considered while you're structuring your financial terms in the beginning phases of the startup?
Are we talking crypto or equity?
We're talking like emerging tech, so crypto and or AI.
Okay.
I was going to say both I think are valuable for our listeners.
Okay, so for the record, a rug pull is not a valid exit strategy.
Oh, shit. There goes my business idea. Exit strategy. I thought it was a business idea.
Well, just want to put that out there. Reality is the absolute vast majority of companies, of startups, exit via acquisition. So to the order of like 80-90%. More than 90%. Way more. Only like 1 or 2% actually make it to IPO, because not every startup has the magnitude of doing that. And honestly, if you're a first-time founder, you should just make up your rough mind how an exit could look like, but honestly, don't waste time reminiscing about that, because first of all, there is no guarantee, and second, honestly, it's also not that sexy if you raise your pre-seed round to come in and say, oh, we're going to exit the company in the next 5 years with this, and this is going to be the person acquiring us. It just really raises a lot of eyebrows when you think you already have your exit figured out before even getting your first customer. So maybe focus on creating revenue first and then worry about exit. So that's like general rule of thumb. But that being said, at least have it somewhere in the back of your mind and like have some sort of vision or acknowledgement that if you raise venture capital, investors require an exit. So you at least should understand what they are longing for to actually make an investment.
Mm-hmm. That's a really salient point. Understand who you're getting into bed with. Also understand their investment horizon, meaning how long has that fund been going for? Usually a fund, on average, 5 years, 3 years if they're Web3. Averages, do your research. But if they're 2 years into a 3-year cycle, likelihood is they're probably going to want to see money sooner than later.
Correct.
All right, so question 7, protecting interests. How can founders protect their interest and maintain control? And what are the gotchas when negotiating with venture capitalists?
In general, only raise the money that you need. Like, honestly, don't overraise. Like, the biggest caveat or the biggest fallacy I've seen over the last couple of years in startup world and venture capital, people treat raising money as a goal of a startup. It's not. Like, literally, it's not. Your goal is to build a successful, profitable business over time, and you need capital to do that. So getting capital is a means to a goal. It's not your goal. So don't over glamorize your closing of your round. Like, yeah, sure, shoot out that LinkedIn post or whatever it is that makes you happy and brag a little bit about it. It's a great accomplishment, but it's not the goal of your company. So don't see it as one, and really only raise the capital that you need to get to the next stage, whatever that stage is. So that already protects your interest, because now you don't over leverage on debt, because while we are talking about equity investments, think of the investment that you get as debt. You still owe the people shares and you still owe them a part of your company. It's just a different form of debt, really. So the easiest way to protect your interest is to only give as little away as possible and only raise the money that you need. And then there's a lot of details in how to structure your cap table and your term sheets to actually protect your interest on an operational layer. But we go into that in our blogs.
On the blog. All right, cool. So number 8, milestones and funding. What milestones are critical to secure before you approach investors for a pre-seed, seed? And how do these influence the terms set in the financial agreements? Like, we're talking traction kind of numbers.
So what I can only recommend here, because we could go into so many details right now, and the milestones really depend on the vertical you're in. So B2B SaaS has different milestones than deep tech, has different milestones than a B2C marketplace, has different milestones than Web3. But generally, think of all metrics that resemble traction. That usually the number one is revenue or profitability, right? So there is specific, let's say, revenue ranges that are expected. Let's just say for a B2B SaaS seed round, usually you should be hovering somewhere around $500,000 to 1.5 million in ARR, annual recurring revenue, and you also should show that you're growing constantly. So another factor is how fast does that grow. So there's like this usually like triple, double, stuff like that. So basically you want to show that you are on a growth trajectory. And then there's other things like capital efficiency, churn rates, your capital burn, yada, yada, yada. So there is a plethora of metrics that can be measured, and the actual milestones that are expected per stage really vary by the actual type of startup we're talking about. So Web3, for example, it can be the TVL, right? Like the transaction value that you see if it's like an infrastructure play, can be the number of users, like the wallets that are connected, things like that. So you should really educate yourself about your specific vertical and see what other companies have achieved. And honestly, there is great content out there, so there is no excuse for you to not do that. And it's actually not taking that much out of your time to like just go down for a day and like do the research to find out recently what were rounds that people got invested in, what were like the typical milestones that they reached. Just as an example, for deep tech, it's a lot about IP defensibility lab research, right? So it's completely different than a typical B2B SaaS play, for example. So educate yourself. There is plenty of information out there. I can only recommend Google keywords, metrics for startup fundraising, metrics per round, what's like the typical benchmark numbers for each startup round, right? So there is a couple of keywords that you can search for that will help you find those out rather quickly.
And we'll follow up on the blog. Okay.
I feel that somebody's pitching very heavily for the blogs that are to come. I'm hyped now.
Yeah, I mean, we're going to stick that HSBC stuff on there. We're going to really try and collaborate with Sebastian to really try and create that roadmap.
Yep.
So 9, investor relations. We talked about this at length in the pre-call. How people just get this wrong. Like, what strategies should founders employ to effectively manage these relationships with investors? As an investor, what do you want to see? Like when you've already awarded some capital.
I think there's 2 easy tips here. Again, a lot more that we can follow up on, but the 2 low-hanging fruits are update your investors. Like, you wouldn't believe how many startups actually fail on that and basically go completely radio silent and ghost their investors. Don't be one of them. It actually doesn't take that much to do a monthly update for your investors. And you should actually do that yourself to also keep track of your own progress with your team and everything. So you don't have to do an extra update. Just do whatever you do to actually steer your team and steer your startup, right? And just share that once a month. That already can make a big difference and create a lot of trust and confidence. And with that, you can also formulate concrete asks. Like, if you need intros, if you need specific things from your investors, then use that regular update to ask them. And it's easier to ask an investor if you keep them in the knowing than to ask them if you went radio silent for 6 months and then out of a sudden resurface wanting something from them. Usually that doesn't go that well because they actually might have forgotten you at that point since they probably have 20 other portfolio companies that they have to cater to, and those companies might have been more active in keeping in touch with their investors. So just bear that in mind. And other than that, it's like, it's about confidence and trust. It's about keeping rapport open, and also like being transparent with like your traction and like, pointing out problems like that. That can be on an ad hoc basis. It doesn't have to be regular updates. But generally speaking, treat your investor like an extended team member. Careful. Don't expect them to do operational work. They are not hired. Like they won't do your marketing strategy for you. But if you have a pressing question where they might have experience or a network, ask them.
Yeah, I think that's very often overlooked. People think, I have investors, so I shouldn't come with my problems and challenges. It's like, no, you should. Like that's why these people are generally strategic investments. Sometimes it's just a check, but often it's actual strategic investment. So you can go to these people and say like, hey, you are an expert in this particular vertical. Give me some perspective on this problem that I have, and because I can't seem to solve it X, Y, and Z. And more often than not, they will say like, oh yeah, we solved that 20 years ago by doing X, Y, and Z. You should probably try this. Or, hey, I know somebody that can help you. Let's connect you and let's get this out of the way.
Exactly.
Be open, be there. Don't be afraid, I think, also of your investors, because it's very often they're like, yeah, but they invest a lot of money in us. Yes, they want to see you succeed. So that means that they're really, really there to help you, and not just to, like point you down and say like, oh, you're a complete asshole. Like, yeah, you're really shit at your job. No, you're a founder. Of course you make mistakes, but these people are here to help you, right? But to the extent like they won't do operational work for you.
Yeah, general rule of thumb, investors generally try to not make their investment go to shit. So you can leverage their intrinsic motivation of seeing you succeed.
Well said.
Emerging technology is rapidly changing, and you've got to have, where I get excited is an innovative business model, but the term that everybody uses is moats, right? So what are some of the frequent moats, the frequent business models that you're seeing in the space right now? Are there any frameworks that we can just, list off 1, 2, 3 that are investable, that are hot right now, that are things people should look at?
I might have an unpopular opinion on that, and I don't know if that is like general consensus among the VC community, but it's my opinion. So unless you are in deep tech, where technological moats are still absolutely relevant, so IP, trademarks, like you have technology that others don't have, simply put, in like hardware, but also could be blockchain, but blockchain is a bit hard because most of it is open source, and IP in open source is usually tough. Same applies to AI for some part. Mm-hmm. Honestly, I personally think right now we are moving to this point where the distribution mode will be the most important mode. And the reason being is, back then you also had brand modes, you had sales mode, stuff like that, all of that, and technological mode in software as well. I think that I see that vanishing more and more. Why is that? Is because we are in a more fast-paced society right now. The speed and velocity of technological change is absolutely crazy. So if you have a small innovation in a Gen AI application layer solution, chances are that technological mode might actually not be there in 6 months anymore, because the foundational models and the underlying technology has advanced so quickly. And the other thing is, I don't know if people are still that much into brand loyalty. Honestly, I sometimes really question if that still is a thing. Having a strong brand never hurts, don't get me wrong, but I don't know if I would still consider that a real moat. Reason being is you can just be overtaken left and right, and the biggest and strongest moat these days that I see is distribution. Like, can you ship your product to the customer quickly? Like, do you have the network, the channels to immediately reach your target audience? And then that's one of the reasons why personal brands and social media have become even more important, because a lot of people use exactly that as sales channels for their products. Now, most of them are like consulting services and typical entrepreneur stuff, and people sling their courses and like their educational content. Fine, that's usually not startup, that's like consultancy work, I would call it. But that being said, right now, I would argue that's the strongest mode you can have. If you don't have, and on the flip side, if you don't have a distribution mode, you're going to have a hard time actually surviving as a startup.
That was an excellent answer. Lots to think about there. Cool.